My name is William Gassaway. I am the Assistant Curator of Art here at the Albuquerque Museum, and had the pleasure of opening this exhibition, Cara and Diego Romero, Tales of Futures Past, this past Saturday. This show is a national traveling exhibition that will be up until February 8th of 2026. So you have a few more months to come back and enjoy, perhaps with a little fewer people than we have tonight, if you like. But it's really wonderful to have a great turnout tonight, so thank you for being here. This show was organized by the Figge Museum, that's F-I-G-G-E, out in Davenport, Iowa, and then moved to the Crocker Museum in Sacramento, California, before coming here to Albuquerque for the final venue. And it's really a homecoming of sorts because the two artists featured, Cara and Diego Romero, are based in Santa Fe. So really they're locals to us, and this feels like we are bringing all of their work home to the place where it was created, and that's really a special celebration for the museum. And the two artists could not be more lovely or talented or brilliant people. They keep their own individual practices. Cara is a photographer, Diego is a potter. They are married and they talk about their ideas and show each other works in progress all the time, but they do have distinctive practices, but deal with a lot of the same sorts of themes. One of those themes that comes through in each section of this exhibition is Indigenous futurism. Indigenous futurism is an art practice or movement that was begun in 2003, so it's a little over 20 years old. Has a lot in common with Afrofuturism, if you're more familiar with that. But it essentially, it's a way for artists to intersect native art, culture, and lifeways with alternative timelines and histories. Perhaps imagined futures where native peoples of what is now the United States were not subjected to colonialism, and in that sense also allows a really rich and fertile kind of imagining of future timelines, of alternate realities, of augmented realities. It's really a sci-fi sort of theme that comes through a lot of this exhibition, and I hope you'll enjoy it. There are 5 sections of it, but I'm going to just not belabor that point and just go through a few of the works. So if you all will follow me as we go through, I hope to show you a number of important works here. There are 18 total pots and prints by Diego and 22 photographs by Cara. As I said, this is a nationally traveling show, so it's one of those shows that was already organized before it came here. However, we like to put our mark on anything that we do here, and one thing special that I was able to borrow for this presentation are 2 monumental photographs on the back wall that we'll see. One, they're both by Cara. One is 15 feet long, the other one is 30 feet long. I've never seen a photograph that long before, so I'm glad you're here because you have to see them to believe them. So yeah, let's get underway. The works that I'll start with are immediately to my left here. These are 2 works from a larger series called the First American Doll series. A lot of you are probably familiar with American Girl dolls, right? Well, this is a way of sort of reclaiming that identity that is often lost in the stereotypical portrayals of Native Americans in popular media like dolls, as well as you'll see film and television and music and all sorts of different media. But this is a way for the artist to invite Native subjects to bring with them the objects that most represent their identities, their realities in their tribal lives, in their public lives. Instead of assuming the sorts of objects that describe them, she invited them to choose the exact objects and help them arrange them in the space and create this sort of made-up doll box stage that you see them in here. So I think it's a really savvy and satirical way of looking at something that maybe a lot of us take for granted, that things like these dolls, and to be able to see these real people that are playing against those themes in a really distinguishing and powerful way, I think. On the blue wall, you'll see an image titled Pueb Fiction. That's P-U-E-B fiction. It's a play on Pulp Fiction, the Quentin Tarantino movie from the 90s that was so famous. And you'll see the character that Uma Thurman played has been dressed in traditional Cochiti regalia with a headdress, moccasins, and skirt and belt. She's reading a little fan fiction, pulp magazine titled Cochiti. So just a really funny and unexpected way of recasting familiar characters in a new light. With TV Indians, the black and white photo by Cara to my right, we see a number of individuals who are from different Native communities, are positioned around working television sets that have been seemingly abandoned in this big field. And on each of those TV screens, you see images of famous Native Americans, or actually ideas of Native Americans, because some of those individuals turned out to have fictionalized their own heritage. For example, you see the Keep America Beautiful ad campaign from the 1970s that was encouraging Americans to not litter. That featured a gentleman named Iron Eyes Cody, who turned out to be of Sicilian descent and not Native American at all. And I think too of the 1973 Oscars, when the actor Marlon Brando asked Sacheen Littlefeather to decline his award on his behalf out of solidarity with Native American tribes and the stereotypical negative portrayals in film, portraying them as illiterate or uneducated or drunks, and all these negative images. Works like this begin to resuscitate that image in popular media and to really put forward more positive virtues. And rounding out this section of film, we have what I would call a damsel in distress sort of image, the sort of 19-teens early movie depiction of helpless women who needed some strong male hero to step in and save the day. Here, that traditionally white heroine has been replaced with a Native American woman whose hands are bound with ropes and who's holding a pot that was made by her grandmother. The subject is a woman named Ka Followell, and the pot is by her grandmother, Jody Followell. So it's a really meaningful family portrait in a way, even though it is taking this jibe, this hit at traditional portrayals of Native Americans in Hollywood. And it really talks about westward expansion, manifest destiny, right? With the sunset behind her and the tracks leading off toward the west. This is the ceaseless march by the US government to consume land and to take over sovereign tribal territory. I do want to make sure that you all are noticing the two pots that are in this section and the pots throughout by Diego. These are far more historical themes that are being represented, and if you can't see them from this side, maybe after we move on and free up this section, you can come around and take a look. But essentially, these are depictions of the Pueblo Revolt of 1680 that took place here in New Mexico. One of the works featured I want to point out is from the Albuquerque Museum. That's the work on my right here. And in fact, the Albuquerque Museum, the Figge Museum, and the Crocker Museum all have a work by Diego in this show, so we all have skin in the game, so to speak. And that work from the Albuquerque Museum's collection is titled Knot Runners, K-N-O-T, Knot Runners. These are the gentlemen that were entrusted with carrying knotted ropes from Pueblo to Pueblo so that everyone would have the same calendar and know how to coordinate their efforts. And with each day that passes, you undo a knot and you know that you're one day closer to a coordinated Pueblo revolt, one that was very successful, the first successful American Revolution, and that drove out the conquistadors for 12 years. So it's a real point of pride for many Pueblo peoples here in New Mexico. Moving on to this wall here, another point of pride for Native artists here is Indian Market. It's an annual event that takes place in Santa Fe when artists are invited to set up shop in their individual booths and sell their crafts, their art, their other wares. And what you see here are 12 artists and a central Buffalo Man character. who are all very prominent fixtures of the Indian market scene up in Santa Fe each year. And so, like I said before, many of the artists that you see in the show are locals. They are, this show is coming home to them, and we're really honored by that fact. You may recognize some of them, but in particular, I'll point out Diego Romero here, the potter that you see around you, and who knows the art historical illusion that's being made here. What is this reference to? Last Supper, yep, by Leonardo. You'll notice that this image was also reproduced outside of the gallery as you were walking in. That's actually mimicking the exact location of Leonardo's Last Supper in Milan. It is also a fresco positioned above a doorway of the dining room there at a convent. And so I wanted to really drive home that symbolism and let you know sort of the tone and vibe of the show as you begin. I'm going to continue behind this wall here, but do spend some time looking at these images of powerful women. On the shorter wall over here, we have a boxer, we have a depiction of Wonder Woman over there. I love especially the quote by Cara in the boxer label, where she said, "These women don't need me to make them strong, they're already strong." She's just showing them in the best light possible. All right, continuing with this sort of second half of the exhibition. We have the monumental photo behind me titled Four Horsemen. I'm going to come around to the other side of you so I'm not blocking it. And, Four Horsewomen, I should say, not horsemen. Four Horsemen, of course, is a common theme that many of you will recognize from the Bible, from the book of Revelation. This is the end of days when these four horsemen representing famine and conquest and war descend on the earth to reckon with these final days. And this is not that. This is the opposite. This is women who are representing joy and abundance and community togetherness as an antidote or remedy for what ails us as humankind, namely ecological worries, climate change, global warming. It's through their efforts, the artist has stated, that we can begin to find a path out of the current dire situation that we find ourselves in. And it's just such an amazing, strong portrait of these four women. On the video monitor located directly opposite this work, you can see a short documentary about 8 minutes long, all about the making of these two huge photos. These were shot just outside of Ghost Ranch, made famous by Georgia O'Keeffe years ago. But really these photos have nothing to do with Georgia. In fact, if anything, it's about reclaiming land that was once owned by sovereign native nations. And so like I said before, this is 10 feet tall and 30 feet long. When I saw these for the first time, it was at Cara Romero's studio in Santa Fe. And immediately fell in love with them and thought, how can I get these to Albuquerque? I need to share these with people. How do you possibly transport an image that's 30 feet long? Then I realized at the bottom right corner there was a little black tab, and I asked her assistant, what's that tab for? And she said, oh, this? Let me show you. And she grabbed it and she peeled the photograph off of the wall. It's printed on fabric. You can roll it up. You can break the frame down into 8 pieces. You can tuck the whole thing under your arm. I could have walked it here. Just so smart, so savvy. We'll continue on to the other image here, and then I'll pause again for questions, but I wanted to make sure that you see the other monumental image in this series. Excuse me. So this is also titled Four Horsewomen. Red Mesa is the subtitle. Almost immediately after this shoot, just a few days later, one of these horses gave birth to a baby horse. And that, for the women, for the photographer, for the whole crew, was a really special sort of symbol of the abundance and joy that they're trying to bring to the front with these images, and just a lovely outcome and fruition of this experience for them. As I said, that many of these women featured in these photos, or all the subjects of Cara's photos, are family and friends. And in particular, her daughter appears in a number of photos, so we'll see her in these black and white photos that we moved over here to. Any questions as we transition to the next section? Anything coming up?
Just the printing. You talk about how to transport, but how do you print?
Yeah, the question is, how do you print these works? And I don't exactly know the answer to that question in regard to these two particular works. All I can tell you is that it has to be 10 feet wide to be able to shoot out an image 15 feet long in this case. But yeah, I like to let a little bit of mystery remain when it comes to art. I think it's good to keep some of that magic. So as I said, the work on my right features the artist's daughter. Her name is Cricket Tiger, and she is posed in a lake representing Lake Havasu. This is the traditional homelands of the Chemehuevi people. That is Cara's tribal affiliation is Chemehuevi. They have traditionally occupied what is now the western coast of Lake Havasu, the California side of Lake Havasu. In fact, the lake post-dates the tribal lands because that lake is the result of the Parker Dam being constructed in the 1930s when this land was flooded. And a huge portion of native territory was lost and is now submerged under that lake. So if you were to dive deep enough down, you would find the ruins of Cara's ancestors down there. And it's just another example of how often Americans in their never-ending efforts to colonize, to take over more and more land, make what has always been a free and sovereign land suddenly the property and the unusable property of Native peoples. The work on my left is a Native Hawaiian subject here, posed underwater in traditional regalia. And if you look closely at the label, there's also an inset image that shows you exactly how the photographer took that underwater photo. So she goes to any length to capture the images that you see here in the show, and it's truly impressive, the effort that she goes to. In front of me here in the blue case are two pots by Diego. The one on the right is titled Momo, Grandfather, and that's an image of the artist as a young boy lying on the floor of his home listening to stories that his grandfather would tell. In the background is a TV playing CNN. This is not traditional imagery. This is anything but. This is contemporary pottery. And when we had the artists in conversation here on Saturday, Diego made that point a few times that he started as a traditional potter, but he is very much a contemporary potter. He is not traditional in his lifeways, and although he's making pots in a traditional way, he is painting them in ways that no one's ever seen before. This imagery that is so fresh and modern and comic book-like has been inserted into the base of these vessels, and is definitely referencing Greek pottery, but also Spider-Man. Those are equally important in what's going on in his work here. You'll also notice that he has this characteristic checkerboard frame around his vessels. And that and other motifs come directly either from Cochiti pottery or Mimbres pottery, also ancient art form in New Mexico. And in every one of those pots, you'll notice that there's a break in the design. There's what he calls a spirit trail. It's essentially an exit from the piece. It's a way for the potter to make peace with and leave behind a particular work. He's very much involved and engaged with it as he's making it, and then he makes peace with it, and he walks away, and he acknowledges that their paths now diverge, and he is no longer responsible to this vessel. And so that little break is everything that he needs to excuse himself from it. There's a painter named Willem de Kooning who said something similar. He said, "I never know how to finish a painting, I just paint myself out of it." Anyone here from Española? No? Maybe some of you still will recognize the work on my left here, this largely red and black work. That's the Saints and Sinners bar and packaged liquor shop in Española, where these three figures are posed. The male figure with his back to us, you'll notice, has a coyote tail sticking out from beneath his coat and two coyote ears up above. The coyote in so many different native traditions represents the trickster figure, someone who makes questionable choices, such as hanging out at all hours of the night outside of a bar and packaged liquor store in Española. For the artists, this is a very personal image for both Cara and Diego, frankly. Both of them mentioned on Saturday that they have been practicing sobriety for a number of years now. For Cara, it's 16 years that she's been sober. And this is an important aspect of Native life and that Native stereotypes that we read about. She was very nervous about depicting these individuals in front of a liquor store, but also she recognizes that that is a very real plight in the Native community, and it's one that she has overcome, it's one that Diego has overcome, and many, many others have. And it doesn't have to define them or distinguish them, but to ignore it completely would also be a less than factual record of life. And so, that's true of not only Native community, but whites communities and Hispanic communities, everyone. This is something that we all have to confront, these sort of social taboos and collective efforts to overcome what could be dangerous in society. We'll continue on to section 4, which is titled Apocalypto. Some of you will remember Apocalypto as the title of a Mel Gibson film from a number of years ago. And as someone whose background is in the study of ancient Americas, that film was ridiculously hard to watch because of the factual and historical inaccuracies, such as the Spanish contacting the Maya, who would have already abandoned their cities and dispersed widely 600 years earlier. Small difference, right? And so this again is a chance to reckon with the depiction by outsiders of the end of the world and the actual realities of lifeways ending for so many Native American peoples. To my right, we have a work titled Water Memory, where two figures of male and female are submerged and drowning underwater. Immediately calls to mind what we were just talking about with Lake Havasu and the submersion of that city, and now it's ruins. To the right of that work is actually an artist well known to our collection. His name is Chanupa, and Chanupa is Lakota, originally from the area of South Dakota, where the Dakota Access Pipeline was protested a few years ago. Chanupa was among those protesters, and this is a comment on a different kind of submersion in his own homelands, the drowning in oil resources that were sought by non-Native peoples. And we'll go ahead and move into the final section here. And if you all remember, I mentioned first thing this idea of Indigenous futurism. And this, I think, is where you see it most clearly, the idea of Native ways reimagined, respected, and brought into contemporary moments, but then also projected deeply into the future. What would it be like? What will it be like for Native Americans in the future? And what would it have been like had they never suffered the oppression, violence, and trauma of colonization? These works in this section imagines that, as so much of Cara's and Diego's works do. The work to my right, featuring this woman in red and black body paint, specifically aligns the Indigenous futurist movement with Afrofuturism. And the model you see here, whose name is Alika, is both Indigenous and African in her heritage. And Cara thought that it was really important to show a sense of unity and camaraderie across marginalized peoples. And I'm a big fan of this work in particular because it references one of my favorite hip hop albums of all time, which is Low End Theory by the group A Tribe Called Quest. So again, throughout the show you see references to Leonardo, to Greek pottery, to hip hop. It just goes on and on. I really love this exhibition as a lesson in art history. And for me, it's an opportunity to really encourage all of you and anyone else who visits this exhibition to not think about Native art as segregated from the rest of history, but integral to a global art history, one that can make references across time and geography and culture, and is not confined to any one set of ideals or symbols, but can draw freely from it in this rapidly globalizing world. That is a common fixture or facet of our presentations here at the museum. I'm really proud to say that we have never segregated Native American art from other art. So many big museums around the nation today pat themselves on the backs when they reach this same point in the last couple of years of integrating Native American art, and for us it's been a decades-long dedication and devotion. Happy Native American Heritage Month, by the way, which began on Saturday. As I said in our event on Saturday, it's extremely important to celebrate that holiday with such an important exhibition. However, it did not determine when we were going to host this exhibition. Every month at the Albuquerque Museum is a month to celebrate Native art. And we get into the last few images by Cara and last couple of pots by Diego. I won't say too much about this one. I think it's just really striking what you can see with your own eyes. I love this watermelon palette of this woman who is at some distant time in the future with little tubes and wires plugged into her face. Who knows what she's doing, but I think you start to see a little bit more clearly in the next picture titled Three Sisters, that these wires, these cords, are connected to their brains, to their hearts, to their pregnant bellies. Women, and Native women in particular, in this show are formidable life forces, and have, so much of the world depends on their generosity of spirit, their unwavering sense of care and devotion to community, and this exhibition really celebrates it in really wonderful ways. It's also titled Three Sisters, which some of you will recognize as a reference to corn, beans, and squash. We have an extra supplemental label here that was provided to us by the museum in Iowa. I wondered, do we even need that here in New Mexico? I think we're all pretty familiar with the Three Sisters, but we do get tourists from out of state, so it's for their benefit. And the last works that I'll focus on are these by Diego, which are really his attempt to reckon with the long-held conspiracy theory that the Mayans were somehow contacted by alien races. After all, how could they have possibly invented such sophisticated mathematics, astronomy, or huge architecture if they had not been contacted by some superior race? Obviously, this is an outdated and racist theory that doesn't ascribe appropriate autonomy and sophistication to Native peoples from the Americas. I'll be giving a talk on November 20th when we have a Third Thursday event. That's when the museum is open late, devoted just to this show. I'll be giving a talk on that will debunk this conspiracy theory. It will show how Mesoamerican astronomy is even more interesting than this fake astronomy. And then we're going to turn people loose on the balconies with telescopes and star maps of the Mesoamerican cosmos. So come check it out. Join us on November 20th if you can. Thank you for coming tonight. Really appreciate your time and your attention. If you have questions afterward, I'm happy to hang out for a moment. But otherwise, we've got another tour lined up for you in Gallery 1. So keep enjoying it, and thank you again.